All right, Giovanni, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Well, howdy. It sounds like it's a good, fantastic marketing strategy show today.
It is. It is.
That's a really nice lineup, and I think we're all going to gel well together. So today I want to talk a little bit about Instagram, and specifically Instagram for businesses and kind of strategy. It's funny because with the social media stuff, a lot of times social media feels easy, and at the same time it feels extremely hard, and it's very difficult, especially for a business, to be able to figure out what their strategy should be and what they should be posting up online in a way that's measurable and actually effective for their business. So and that kind of gets to, the first thing I want to talk about is kind of, when businesses come to me and when I speak to folks, they typically ask, what am I supposed to be posting up on Instagram? And right off the bat, that's kind of the wrong way to approach something. You've got to ask yourself two questions initially. Initially, what you want to do is you want to ask, what do you hope to achieve as a business when you're up on Instagram? What are you trying to do? What are the results? What are the results supposed to look like? And not just some kind of vague 10,000 foot. We want to get more customers. What we want to talk about is, what are the clear, defined, and measurable goals that need to be a part of an Instagram strategy as a business for us to feel like and know that we're being successful. So that's question number one. Number two is, why should anybody care? The one of the things one of my older brothers told me a while back was, whenever you start a business, and he works in law in IP as an attorney, and he used to always look for entrepreneurs that had business cards before they had a business. And to him, that was a red flag that they weren't focusing on the right thing, right? And so when we're out doing our marketing and our engagement out on social media, we need to be focusing on why people should care that we're posting stuff. And that inherently means that as a company, we honestly have to look outward to the consumer as opposed to trying to get the consumer to look at us. And it's a completely different mindset, and it's hard to get your head wrapped around that.
That's the right way to do it.
Well, it's the most effective way to do it, because companies that go out and always try to push their agenda on a consumer to try to find that consumer that way are the ones that typically fail, and they get frustrated. They don't understand why they're failing. So
wasn't that like the 1960s model?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, it's the 2018 model for a lot of businesses. So yes, it's old marketing, it's old advertising, and it's typically if everything, if all I have is a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. And there's still too much of that. And certainly there's plenty of companies that are, especially companies that have been created in the last few years, that have a different mindset, but there's still a ton of them, I would say the vast majority, that everything looks like a nail to them, right? So how do we figure out what we're supposed to be producing for people up on Instagram that is going to be effective for us? Well, whenever you're looking at people that are on any social media site, and particularly on Instagram, they're looking for one of three things. They want to be entertained, they want to be educated, or they want to be inspired, or they want to engage somewhere, be motivated. Those three elements are what they're looking for. I didn't say they want to be sold to. I didn't say that they want you to tell them what's best for them. They want to be motivated so they can discover stuff. They want to be entertained, or they want to be educated about something. If we can do one of those, that's fantastic. If a business can do two of them, you're pretty rare. If you can do all three of those at the same time, you are hitting it out of the park. Ninth inning, 3 runs down, bases loaded, because it's not easy to have the creative and have the execution to be able to do all three of those. But let's kind of focus on what do we want to do with trying to achieve one of those, much less all three of them. Now, what tactics? Strategy, when we look at kind of the strategy of how we're going to focus on something, that's the why. We figured out why we're going to do something. Now, the what is going to be the tactics. What are we going to do to support us achieving the goals that we want to achieve? Are we going to tell stories? Do we have a brand story to tell? And that kind of backs us up into whether or not the brand is fully developed. Is live video appropriate for what we're doing? If we're going to do live video, and even if we're doing photography on Instagram, what kind of cameras do we use? And it doesn't mean you have to go out and buy a camera, but you got to decide what kind of camera you're going to use and how often are you going to do it. If you don't have any time and you don't have any resources available, Instagram is a tough platform to break into. You pretty much want to focus on other things, more traditional marketing. Because it takes a fair amount of effort to be successful on Instagram. If you've got some time but don't have a ton of resources and you don't have a lot of people available to you, then you can create kind of man on the street editorial content with your phone, learn some basic, the best practices. And this doesn't mean that the CEOs and the entrepreneurs are the owners of these companies. Folks that work for you, pick somebody out that's fairly creative and get them to learn the basics of photography and video and have them do that stuff for you with the folks that are in the office. If you've got no time, but you've got a ton of resources, the train's running off the tracks, you're making tons of cash, the business is successful, but you haven't built your team yet, super easy, outsource it. You get a creative agency to come in, you teach them a little bit about what your brand needs to be and have them do that work for you. If you've got tons of time and tons of people and tons of resources, then you bring it in-house and you do it yourself and you essentially become a publisher. That's obviously the best case scenario because folks inside your business are going to be the ones that are going to take care of your business for you and understand it the best. You need to be able to measure what you're doing, right? Let me back up really quick. Everybody always wants to know. Everybody always asks, how often do I post? What do I post? How often do I post? How often do I post? They ask it 1,000 times. The Weasley answer I'm going to give you is it depends. You post stuff and you look at your analytics and the data tells you whether or not your audience wants more or wants less of it. So that's the first part of it. The second
data tells you.
Data always has the answers for you.
How do you know that what they're telling you?
Here's the rocket science. When they respond more to it, do more of it. When they respond less to it, do less of it. And the super, super smart person you have at the end of the hour today that talks about data analytics knows a gazillion times more about this than I do. I'm a lowly consultant that was doing this for 20 years, and I've learned that when the hockey stick goes up, you do more of what you're doing, and when it goes down, you do less, right?
I didn't mean to stop you. Number two?
So number two, the amount of content you post that is within the areas of entertain, execution, engagement, and all, and inspiring folks. Outside of that, you clearly have to have some kind of a cause you have to have some kind of a way to cause people to then act upon your content that benefits your business. You can't just be like an entertainment channel, right? So typically in social media, what we want to do is about 80% of the time we want to entertain, educate, inspire people. And then about 20% of the time we have the ask, the call to action, the whatever, right? In social media that's highly visual, like video and Instagram and photography and stuff, that number needs to be ramped up to 90% of the time. You need to be engaging people in a way that entertains, informs, and educates. And about 10% of the time you've got a call to action or you ask someone to do something that benefits your company. So that's a lot to think about this week. That's a lot to kind of get your head wrapped around. Next week, we're going to roll this into, okay, now what are we going to talk about when it comes, how do we measure the success, right? How do we, analyze the different engagements and which ones are worthless and which ones are worth more? And how do we reboot our current Instagram branding for our business in a way that feels fairly seamless so we don't jerk, we don't turn around and like throw all our current, members, our current viewers kind of out of whack because we've turned the train on them and didn't tell them. Turning the train, I just made that up.
That's a good. All right, we're going to copyright that. All right, Giovanni Gallucci, thanks for being a guest on the show. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we'll be right back on the other side of this break with our next guest. That's going to be Lisa Pryor, founder CEO, Pryor Consulting. And this segment has been brought to you by thevitaminpatch.com. You've been listening to CEO Money with Michael Yorba. We'll be right back.